Welcome back to On the Job. Today we're on a very special episode. We're at Local 1403, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and we're interviewing Captain William Billy McAllister. Welcome back to today's episode, On the Job, Alumni in Action. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is someone whose story doesn't follow a straight line like many others we've interviewed, but that's exactly what makes it worth telling. Captain William Billy McAllister is a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Captain, MDC Fire Academy alumnus, and at this current point, he is the IAFF Local 1403 Union President, one of the largest fire service locals in the state of Florida. His family has been in Miami since the 1910s. His father retired as a fire captain. He grew up in Firehouses, and somehow he still took the long way around through neuroscience, student government, and a phone call that one day changed everything. Cap, welcome to On the Job. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you.
All right, so like every other story that we cover starts, right? Let's start where every good story starts. Tell us with your roots, man. Your family has been in Miami since the 1910s, in the city where almost nobody is actually from here.
That's true.
So what does that kind of history feel like to you?
It's interesting because the stories of how Miami came to be the city it is now are passed down through firsthand experience. My great-great-grandmother came here, built the first high-rise ever at the corner of Flagler and Biscayne, the McAllister Hotel. She really was into property development and real estate, and she was bringing all of these business ideas and things of that nature into being for the benefit of my great-grandfather, who went away to World War I, survived it, saw some action, and then moved home. Unfortunately, he died of appendicitis a couple of years after that, and she soon after retired from real estate and chose to raise my grandfather. So it's just it's a beautiful story, and I've got really old pictures back when the Skyline had only that hotel and then 5 other buildings under construction. I mean, really cool stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys go way back now.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to a little bit more recent. Your father retired as a captain in 2007.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so he ran a fire investigation bureau as an OIC for about 17 years.
Yep.
You grew up as the son of a fireman. What did that world look like from the inside as a little kid?
My first memory was going to Station 23 on US 1. I had a 100-foot platform there at the time, and he took me there, and I got to operate the ladder as they did their weekly checkout. And I remember thinking I had done something wrong because the driver put me on his lap and let me steer into the bay. And when we put it into park, handed me down to my dad, and he ran inside. And years later, my dad told me that driver ran inside to tell the outgoing driver that even Rocky's son could drive the truck and not hit the wall that the driver outgoing had done. So
always joking around.
Yeah, just the firehouse antics. I have very good memories of both visiting him there, being there on the worst days for this department. I remember bringing him food as he was an investigator when we lost Dewey Henry in the fire by the falls. Not fully understanding what I saw, but being out there and seeing the toll it took on my dad, and getting hired in 2002 and having that overlap of a few years where I got to go to, I remember one time in particular, I went to Firehouse 7 where he had taken overtime to work on the engine for the last 12 hours. And I went over there, and I was now bid in on the rescue there, which was just really cool.
You got that, so you got that overlap. That's actually something pretty unique. Not a lot of people that have legacy like that get to experience.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so with that kind of family background, most people would assume that the fire service was always the plan for you, but that wasn't the direction you went. And we'll get a little bit more into the college years. What were your high school years like? What high school did you go to?
I went to Killian down south. Incredibly fun, incredibly competitive academically speaking. Did a lot of fun stuff as a kid, as you would growing up. And when it was time to go to college, I chose University of Florida.
Okay. So you went to Killian High School. You graduated top of your class in 1998, as you had mentioned to me before.
Yep.
You had your sights set on medical school. Where was your head at before you left to Florida?
I thought I was leaving to do the 4 years in undergrad and then going on to being a trauma surgeon or something of that nature. That was the plan when I left Miami.
Okay, so UF is where things got interested.
Yes.
And a little bit complicated, I
Yep.
would say. You start at UF in physics.
Yes.
Your advisor told you that by the time you finish your PhD, you could prove reality doesn't exist.
And I promptly walked out of that office, walked over to the Student Activity Center, and I changed my major. And I went to chemistry at that point. I did not want that power.
That's where I was headed. I was like, so that conversation, you switch majors.
This was before the Matrix movie and all of those things.
Walk me through that journey of, physics, chemistry, sports medicine, political science, all the stuff we spoke about. What were you actually chasing at that time, reflecting back now?
I didn't know it at the time, and I've learned this about myself over time, but I like to find the thing that challenges me most. I started to learn what I also enjoyed and what I didn't want to spend my life doing. So I did move from physics, always pre-med, physics to chemistry, dabbled in psychology for a little bit, and then decided maybe I don't want to do this medical school thing after all, because I keep going through these hard sciences and I'm doing well in it. I just don't really have a passion for it. So I decided to change my major dramatically and go into political science. And I had that for a little bit, but I kept doing the psychology classes and those things because I was still pre-med. And I switched again to exercise physiology, and I became frustrated because everything was far too mechanical and not enough neurological. And then one day I said, well, if you're interested in those things, there's a new interdisciplinary major in neuroscience. So I walked down Shands Hill. They just built the Brain Institute, and I immediately fell in love with the idea of pursuing that as my degree.
Okay, so you ended up in neuroscience. Now, you said something very interesting that caught me. You said you always went after the toughest thing in the room. Where does that come from?
It's innately in my DNA. It's just who I am.
Family like that? Your dad like that?
Yeah. Puzzles as a kid, playing Pac-Man on Atari, like that was always the things I grew up doing, and it kind of became an enjoyable activity. So I think it just manifested itself over time in going into the next thing that I hadn't done before, and I wanted to see what I was capable of doing in that arena.
Well, it's not in my notes, but just thinking about it, you fell into the right position, because this union, I'm assuming you have a ton of different puzzles pieces to find that we'll discuss a little bit later, but it's pretty funny. Now, tell us a little bit about when you walked into the student body's president office at UF with no appointment and no invite. That's an interesting story.
That was a moment I was frustrated because I was contemplating still my grades. I wanted to do well. I wanted my resume and my transcript to reflect I was a good student. And if you dropped out of a class, they put a black mark on it. It said, W, withdrawal. You did something that indicated that maybe you weren't doing well. So I got very frustrated because I saw that other universities didn't do that and sort of put a blemish on a record. They kept that as an internal thing. So I walked into the student body president's office and I was fired up, and we had a conversation. He goes, hey, if you think you can fix it, you work with the student government now, so you go out and see what you can do. And a year later, we fixed that issue, and I was on the university curriculum committee, and then he pulled me in to become involved with student government, and experiences continued.
So you said student government was your next step, right, at UF, proving ground for state legislators.
I had no idea that experience would somehow circle back to what I'm doing now. But yeah, absolutely. If you think when you watch the Florida legislature or the U.S. Congress, you think that's tough, the room at University of Florida is filled with kids that all are aspiring to be, elected officials one day. And 20 years later, looking back, I can list off a number of people that I was in that room with that are now U.S. congressmen, leaders of political parties in the state. I mean, really an interesting mix of individuals.
The energy in that room must have been incredible. Like you said, very motivated, driven, incredibly smart individuals with purpose and goals. And wow, I can't even
It was fast pitch for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, you came down after the whole government. You came down with mono. You sat still for 6 weeks, something that you and I have a very difficult thing doing, right? Sitting still.
Might be the only time in my life I didn't do anything for 6 weeks.
So probably the first time, like you said. And when you came out of it, medical school didn't feel like the answer anymore. What did that pause teach you?
Taking that moment to sit back and reflect on what I've done thus far and then contemplate where I was going, I had the opportunity to think, maybe I'm not certain that I want to practice medicine, especially, this goes back to 2000, right around 2001. The idea that medicine as it was practiced was going to become a business. It made sense to me first to explore the business side of things. So I shifted gears and I decided I'm not going to take the MCAT. I'm not going to prepare to go to medical school. I'm going to shift and look at doing something related to the business of medicine first. And that was the outcome. I think when I told my parents that I had this thing that I had imagined doing my whole life was no longer my primary pursuit, it was a little concerning. But they also said, well, just don't half-ass it. Go ahead and go into it, keep exploring it, see what you find enjoyable, and if you don't like it, move on to the next thing.
Don't half-ass it. I know where that's from.
Yeah.
Matthew McAllister.
Yes, absolutely.
Man, I listen to that every morning.
Yep.
And it's true, man. It's the best advice.
It was a very similar conversation, actually, to the one where he changed.
To an actor.
Very, very similar for me, yeah.
Okay. You guys have a good resemblance. I see that too right there. Now, let's talk about this one. This one's interested. Your dad, and then your dad called. He said you had applied to the fire department and you were in your friend's apartment.
Yep.
Right? Heading to the beach, you had told me.
Yep.
The department called your dad's number by mistake.
Well, it wasn't they called by mistake.
Walk me through that. Walk me through that story, because that's an interesting pivoting point in your life that, you know.
Everything would have changed that day if my dad hadn't called me and I hadn't answered.
Exactly. So talk to me through that.
So my dad called me on a Friday afternoon. It was almost 5 o'clock. And he goes, hey, I just got an interesting phone call. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue called you and they're offering you a job as a firefighter. And I had applied 2 years before. So it was in the back of my mind, it was an opportunity, but it also, it's a 3-year window, and in that last year, your odds aren't looking great. And I had, on the application, I didn't put my cell phone in 2000 when I applied. I put my parents' home number because I knew that someone there would always answer, and if a message was left, my mom or my dad would call, as opposed to a roommate in college might forget, oh, by the way,
you'd miss it.
And you'd miss it. So they called and they asked for William McAllister, and my dad said speaking, and they identified themselves from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and that they were offering to offer a job, and my dad laughed and said, I already work for you, and hung up. And then called back, and he said, wait, what's the birthday? And it was my birthday. So my dad called and said, you need to call this person back immediately so that you can answer them because they're offering you a job. So yeah, had he been like, oh yeah, and moved on with his day, been distracted, who knows?
Put one and one together and said, hey man, so that's a pivoting point in your life that that phone call could have easily been missed and you would have been in another trajectory.
Absolutely.
Somewhere else doing, neuroscience.
That's a door that would have closed and locked. That would have been it.
I mean, think about it. If you would have found out later, would you have applied again? That's something to think about.
You'll never know.
I don't know. You never know because you are where you're at.
Yeah.
Now, the phone call that put you in MDC Class 91 with MDFR, because for those that don't know, MDFR for the non-certified classes go through Miami-Dade College Fire Academy, hence alumni, right?
Yep.
Now, before your first day, your father gave you a specific piece of advice. Don't tell anyone whose son you are. Build your own reputation. And why did that matter to him and to you?
One, in the fire service, you earn your reputation. Anybody that walks in and thinks that they're going to transfer it because they're a third-generation firefighter, or they know the ins and outs, those that you're going to spend your career working with, they don't care who your father or mother or grandfather was. They're going to work with you. They're going to entrust you with their life, and they're going to expect you to help them save lives. So they don't care who you're related to it. So I took that advice to heart. I got to work and I did the best I could, and obviously I had insight into how the game is played. That gives you a bit of a head start. You know that every day ends at 4:00 and it'll end. As painful as it is, you just push through it. But you just gotta buckle down and be your own person.
You got through the entire minimum standards without anyone connecting those dots. Then Captain Herrera looked and said your name and said, "Hey, you're Rocky's kid." What happened after that?
Pain.
So there's the lesson for those legacies that are coming into our academy or any academy, man. Just 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Keep your mouth shut, because honestly, when we find out that you're a legacy, we do look at you a little bit different, and we somewhat expect a little bit more, I would say, as an instructor, knowing that, hey, you're a fireman's kid. I'm gonna put my kid in, hey, don't say, I'm giving the same advice.
Right.
But what happened after that? What do you mean by pain?
A lot more, a much greater set of expectations on what I was capable of doing, both in that moment and for the duration of my career, because that captain and my dad came up together. They knew each other well, and they had great respect for each other. So, knowing how tough and hard-nosed and hardworking my dad is, those expectations were now placed upon me to perform at that same high level, which I was doing, but now it was no longer I was excelling, I was meeting the expectations of my father.
You're rising to a standard that he had set.
Exactly.
And some of those, your dad's a badass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it sucks for you, because now you got to reach that.
I hope I was still already meeting them.
I'm sure you
were.
But
I didn't want it to be that I was being measured against him in that moment. I wanted to, again, be my own person.
And with all due respect, you don't, your dad's a legend, that's cool, but you want to, be your own person, establish your own, merit and not be looked at. And I think that's a hard part for the legacy students that come through. They have a lot of more pressure on their shoulders and hiding it even more, hoping that nobody finds out that, hey, I hope they don't find out my dad is Rocky and this and that. So, all right, but you got through it, man. You came from UF where everything you did was 100 miles an hour, and your dad had told you that this job was about getting it done from start to finish. Now, not fast, start to finish. How long did it take you to actually internalize that mentality in the fire academy?
I think my eyes were open before I even was hired. We did the CPAT, and at the time I was on the track team at University of Florida, and I had walked on, and I walked into the CPAT, and I did the practice round first, and I can do this, and I went full speed, and I went all the way to the very end of the warehouse over in Medley. I remember it. And I remember I'm on that line in the practice session, and I said, "Yep, I'm gonna puke." So I walked out the door. "Oh, you failed. You stepped off the line." I puked, came back in, finished. I still finished in time, but that opened my eyes. It's like, this job is not about doing it at 105% where you may not achieve your objective. It's about saying, between right now, when I've already arrived behind the 8 ball, house sergeant, fire person's already trapped, how do I strategically plan to, as quickly as possible, achieve the desired outcome? So it takes time, because sometimes you just want to move faster than your mouth can move, or your brain can act, or the ability to take everything in and make decisions. So that took me a period of time to adjust, because in college they go, "Here's a piece of paper, 3 questions, you got 3 hours." And you sit in silence and you think, and I'm not going to do that. This job's an inversion of that. It's you're sitting eating dinner. 90 seconds later, you're in gear getting out of a truck. There's a person in a car. It's starting to catch fire. There's a secondary accident 100 yards away from you. You're constantly having to assess new information, filter it in, triage it, and then stay focused on the most important thing. Like, that was probably the hardest thing I had to learn in my life, was that exact thing.
But that's the beauty of our job.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Yep.
That's why
absolutely.
I love it. Now you said something that caught my ear too, that said the Fire Academy is about preparing you to never give up and always keep solving the problem at hand? Coming from that science background, how did that land differently than it would have for somebody else? Like that, your train of thought in that aspect.
I think that in academics, your process of learning is never finished.
Mm-hmm.
And in the fire service, the process of learning is never finished. But when you're applying that knowledge in this job, there is a limited amount of time to deliver a high quality outcome, or bad things happen, either to the people that are already suffering or to us because we failed to act quick enough. Mm-hmm. That was the thing that it's a shift in understanding the pace at which things are evolving. Academics, they measure it in decades and millennia and all those things. Mm-hmm. The world was flat forever, and then it was determined we're on a globe. Mm-hmm. It took time to figure that out. Here, we don't have the luxury of sitting here talking and researching and
people are dying.
Got to do the best we can, learn from it, so the next time we do it even better.
Exactly.
There's similarities, but the consequences of doing a good job or not in this environment is much higher stakes.
Now, what was the moment in the academy that made you feel the most out of your depth, and what did that teach you?
The most difficult in the academy. It was just it was learning that wherever you think your limits are, you're nowhere close. It was, while it's the most physically grueling thing you'll ever do, the conversation in your head is the one that's really the most difficult. You can push yourself to the point that your feet are, on fire, your calves are burning, you don't think you can breathe. You got to mentally coach yourself through that. And that was probably the thing that was the most difficult. I can run, but I'm not 270 pounds, 6'2", so the 3-ring circus was probably the thing that was most difficult for me, just because each one of those activities was physically demanding, and at the time, Captain Herrera didn't let all the little tricks happen. The concrete may be different now out there, but back then it was rough asphalt, and there was no spraying water in front of you to reduce the friction and get it sliding. Like it was tough.
Different times. Now you get through the academy, you succeed and pass Miami-Dade Fire Academy, and you get onto MDFR, right? Probation, and then you never look back. You started at Station 20 on the engine, then moved to Rescue 20.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Both in North Miami.
And first station, first year, what did that feel like compared to everything you thought you understood about the job, since you lived it as a little kid, and
So anything you do, you start to develop a little confidence, right? You go, okay, I had no idea what I was doing, but I've gone through the academy and passed minimum standards. Okay, day one of SOPs. Okay, they're going to teach now internally how Miami-Dade Fire Rescue operates. Triple Air versus Minuteman, like all these different things. Okay, you're adapting to really building out your toolbox of more ways of solving problems. But at the end of the day, this job is to never give up, right? Mm-hmm. Person's trapped. If A doesn't work, try B. If B doesn't work, try C. If C doesn't work, try D. There is no calling someone else and giving up. I mean, I had a drill that as a lieutenant I used to do. I'd walk across the street from Station 7 and I would say, okay, you're on my truck for the day. Here's an overhead rolling door. There's a hockey puck lock on one side, there's a regular lock on the other. Okay, go get the equipment off the truck you want to use to open these. Then get the saw. Everybody likes the saw first. Like, all right, saw didn't work. Go. And I made them keep thinking, what else do I have? Until finally the end point was I took away everything they had. Like, and they can't call for any other help. I'm like, you have one resource left. I don't know what it is. It's like, okay, you have the truck. The truck, if you had to make a hole to bring a firefighter out in the wall, you use the truck because there's nobody else coming to solve a problem. We have to use every available resource to fix it. And then, okay, all right, that's the last thing I would do. I go, you have one more thing. They're like, what? Like, you still have this. You have to keep trying. Yeah. You're focused now here. What about another door? What about this? So, that was probably that's a good story to share.
That's actually a good way to think of it, because you said it, nobody's coming to save you. Yeah. You got to figure it out right there and then with whatever resources that you have available at the time.
Right. Yeah, so there's another story I can share here is that, as I mentioned a moment ago, as soon as you get a little bit of confidence, life has a way of reminding you that there's so much more to learn. So my first shift on Engine 20 at 5 p.m., I met my lieutenant who had come back from training. We were riding short because the other tailboard had not yet arrived. The driver had to go to paramedic school. So the lieutenant I'd worked with for the day moves over to the driver's seat. So it's my new lieutenant I'm just meeting. It's the off-going lieutenant said, I'll drive so he can go to paramedic school and doesn't miss it, and we'll take the new kid with us. So we pull out of the station, and we head over to a reported apartment fire on Northeast 6th Avenue. Turn the corner, there's smoke blowing across. And I'm just so excited. It's raining a little bit. We get there, the officer driving, and we just got brand new Quantums. This was the first Quantum delivered to Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, was Engine 20. We get out, I open the door and the stairs come down and they land in water. So you're 2 feet off the ground. And my officer is excited, pull the line, let's go. So I'm now in an environment, I have to do a close quarters pull. He goes over to the door. I pull by myself to the rear bumper. It's landing in water and it's floating. It's parked 2.5 feet between cars parked and we're parked this way.
Yeah.
I now don't know what to do. Like, I pulled a triple layer load by myself. It's landed in water and I have 2.5 feet by 50. So I just started picking it up and I threw it over the fence. I untangle it. We go ahead, we force the door. There's video of this because one of the arriving officers thought it was great to say, oh, this is his first fire. I'll stay in the truck and capture the moment.
I gotta see that video.
Wow. So we get the hose all laid out at the front door. We've got the 50 feet ready to go in. We haven't charged it yet. I mask up and the officer says, let's just go in. Haven't charged the line yet. She'll charge it. You hear the engine revving up. We're going to have RPMs in a second. It'll get charged. We go in. We turn to the left. Bedroom on fire. Beautiful. No water on the line.
Oh,
So
no.
now imagine you're a rookie. You've only been in controlled environments where it's always met some sort of training standard and you haven't varied too far from a pathway. And he says, I'll be right back. So now I'm on the line, waiting to turn into a bedroom that's fully engulfed. And there's no water in the line.
Man.
This new Quantum had a different way of operating than our previous trucks. So we had to walk back out, help her figure out how to charge it. And then we had water. And then he's pushing me into the room to put it out. When I walked out, I go, I didn't expect my first fire to be this good. Crazy and chaotic for a number of reasons that, happen. But it was just like, it was one of those moments like this job is to walk into the uncontrolled and somehow bring order to that very quickly. And the lesson, the reason I tell that is the lesson that it taught me is try to plan as much in advance as possible for all the things you know to be coming in sequence. Mm-hmm. So that when something goes off track, you're not focusing on remembering where you put something in a pocket or did I put my hood up? You got to make everything so robotic that when the unexpected happens, everything else continues to happen so you can deal with that one thing and you don't lose your train of thought.
You address your variables as you go and make sure that you cover every basis.
Yeah, you have only so much attention, right?
Exactly.
So for me, as I promoted as a captain, if you and I were to work together and you're only there for the day, say, hey, listen, we're going to figure every call out. But there's 4 I need to just pre-plan with you. And I would sit with you for 2 minutes, whether you're driving or in the back of the rescue or on the suppression with me, and say, we're going to leave and move quickly. And here's the first 90 seconds I need you to do on cardiac arrest, dive calls, fires, and traumatic incidents. Everything else we can talk about. Cardiac events, strokes, the outcomes are all measured in how quickly you move over a period of hours. Those are people aren't breathing, person trapped, and it's so important just to have a plan. Just have a plan.
Absolutely. If not,
you're managing chaos on the fly. It's never a good idea.
It's never fun. Never fun. I've been to some good scenes that, like you said, have been planned and have had a plan, and then you get some that you think you had a plan and everything just goes wrong and completely off, and you're like, but I planned for this. But you described let's move forward. You described a unique challenge in this work as constant reprioritization. You gave me the story already, kind of. You're asleep, 90 seconds later, you're doing 70 miles an hour. By the time you get off the truck, the entire situation's already changed twice.
Yeah.
As we continue this conversation, how do you train your mind for that over the years in your career?
Over time, the ways I did it evolved. As a firefighter, the most important thing is when you show up to work, be into the job. Just every day you got to walk in. I'm going to reorganize something. I'm going to find a way to more effectively pack this hose. I'm going to make sure that these things are done in advance, so I'm not surprised by something I can control while I'm drinking a cup of coffee. That's the most important thing. As a lieutenant, it's pre-planning the response, especially if you're arriving first, so that your crew is cohesive. And then as a new lieutenant, I can't tell you how many times as I drove home, every single building I passed became a script. Okay, there's a person trapped on the third floor, they're on the balcony, and I would run through what my arrival sounded like so that it became robotic. I had a script that no matter what I looked at, that script rebuilt that structure so that you listening knew what I was saying. We even did drills. I started to do drills with my guys where it's like, okay, we're going to get another station or another area, and we're going to have them on a training frequency, give their size up. And I would have my guys draw a picture of what that person described. We text a picture of what we drew to that person. They'd send a picture of the building. And sometimes you described it, and sometimes you didn't, but it also helped when people say paint the picture. It helped people understand what they were not including the information to help paint the picture. And then I spent my entire career, once I got off probation at Station 7, firefighter, promoted to lieutenant, stayed there. And then I had to leave when I promoted to captain. My experience up to that point, 9 years into my career, was that fires was the most dangerous place I could operate. That's the place that I thought if we were going to lose somebody or I was going to be injured, it was on a fire scene. I worked in a very aggressive area, a very fire-prone area with very aggressive crews. So I was mindful of that. I get promoted and I go to Station 30, and that was right when I-95 added the paid toll lanes, the express lanes. Yeah. And nobody understood what those delineators, little orange cones, meant. So people crossing over, general purpose, nice and slow, traffic jam. They're like, oh, let me take a left-hand turn into the express lanes. We were getting rollovers 2-3 times. So to what you asked me earlier about constant reprioritization, suddenly I was in a whole new environment, 10 years into my career, and realizing that it was no longer the most dangerous place that I had been. This is now it.
Now is. And
it was the thing over a period of the next 8 years, we worked through the challenges of that. Because suddenly I didn't know how to describe things. I'm arriving first and saying, how do I tell you I'm in the leftmost lane of the general purpose lanes, but I need you to be in the rightmost lane of the express lanes to block traffic? Yeah. Because, I mean, we had to literally invent it. And we wrote the policy, and it became how we operate so that we were safe. So it's always like one of those things, you try to plan as much as you can. B, when you encounter circumstances you've never dealt with before, you should reflect on it. Say, how do we make sure that's never stressful again? Like the goal, if everything is routine, as we call it, you go to a routine house fire, you shouldn't even have to talk. Everyone should just know the sequence of events. I think an important story that also changed my thought process was I was in Indianapolis at FDIC as a new lieutenant. And anytime you see a 27-year-old lieutenant in the realm of FDNY guys, they think you're a phenom. They don't understand all you have to do is take a test and do well and all of those things. Here, it's different up there. But I sat with a hazmat captain from Hazmat 1 at FDNY. We talked for a while. He goes, let me give you a little advice. He goes, I've ridden and I've seen how you operate, and I know how we operate. We're the same. He goes, and this is probably across the whole fire service, but I've seen specifically how you operate and how we operate. He goes, and we're both big departments. We've got our politics, and we've got our politicians, and we've got this firehouse thinks these guys are slugs, and these guys aren't well trained. These guys train a ton. He goes, there is one thing you need to learn from us that fundamentally is different, and this will save firefighters' lives. And he said, you should work in the direction of having a plan and working until you're told to stop, as opposed to, in the face of an obvious tragedy unfolding, standing by waiting to be told what to do. He's like, and that was where that reference I made earlier about you have to keep working until you meet your objective. It really is rooted. He's like, no one else, you don't get to call 1011. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to figure this out.
You are it.
Yeah, which is an incredible burden, right? You have to know everything you could possibly do to solve a problem. And don't screw up, because it might be this child no longer has a father because you didn't know something you should have known. Yeah.
Yeah, we do carry a lot, and you leave me with a lot of nuggets as I'm writing down. You know, one of the things is that arrival report that you mentioned is, and not just the arrival report, but I have something I teach my kids, and it's, most people say practice makes perfect.
Yes.
I believe it's wrong. I changed it for my kids, and I go, practice makes permanent. Motor sensory is built through repetitions, and what you just described is that, you know, that reprioritization, that concentrating, running scenarios, saying your arrival reports, painting pictures, communication on the fire ground is so important that people forget about it.
Yeah.
Like they lack the amount of practice they put into basic, what we do every day, talk. Right? And some officers, I've seen it, it's happened to me. You get to that call and you're like, whoa. And you're like, man, I haven't seen this one before. How do I even describe it?
Right.
I think that's why I fell in love with the job, is that reprioritization, concentrating, unknown. You don't know what's coming today when you're on shift. You just pray that we all go home tomorrow. But over training and all this stuff that, like you said, you left me with a lot in that one. I appreciate that.
I think the capstone of that part of the conversation is I worked with Captain Gustin for a long time as a firefighter and as a lieutenant. And even after I moved to A shift, he would call me, and the humility he would exhibit in talking about a minor issue and how we could do better the next time. Didn't change the outcome of the call. Nothing to the outside observer would have changed. Hey, but let's focus on this. Let's look at that. And a piece of advice that he gave me after I arrived, and gave an arrival report for what I thought was the cover of a fire engineering. A beautiful, old school, giant column of smoke right over the doors walking in. I gave code and conditions. This is going to be a second alarm for sure. I started giving assignments for a structure fire inside of a historic school. You should tell people what you know for sure and admit what you don't yet know, but you're looking into it. Because once I did a 360, I realized this school was 2 stories tall, but only about 80 feet wide, and it was the Tiki hut that was in the courtyard that was on fire. Oh. I went from a picture that was the fire of the year looking at it when I arrived to a Tiki hut on fire that I had already made a building assignment with 60 plus of our members.
Half a water can takes it out.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a good story. Now, early in your career, you told me about a story, acting on the engine, you pull up to a fire, good conditions on the Bravo side, 2 cops shoulder to shoulder in a window that were trying to pull someone out. That was your first real humbling moment as the guy in charge. What did that do to you that day?
I was acting as a firefighter because in that era, we were having so many retirements that they couldn't always fill the seats. So I had a few years on the job and I had seen some things, and there was a rotation in our station. There was 3 of us that would hop in the front seat. And that month was the craziest month in my career. 9 code 1s, 2 became second alarms, and one of those was that one. And arrived, front door, looks like backdraft. Just flames blowing out from like knee height all the way up. Go to the Bravo side, and code conditions, everything's routine, right? I go to do my 360, I walk around the side, there's 2 Metro-Dade cops, shoulder to shoulder, trying to pull an invalid through the window, bedridden individual. In that moment, I hadn't yet been trained as an officer. I hadn't yet realized that the 2 most important things I can do is key a mic and shine a flashlight. I defaulted to being a firefighter. We've got a victim. And that was a real moment where I was like, man, I really have to take to heart the idea that once you're the boss, as much fun as you think you're gonna have, forcing a door, jumping through a window, extending a line, like none of those are your job. And the hardest part once you put on a gold badge is that the moment you feel the need that you can't resist to put your hands on tools, it means 2 things. One of 2 things. Either your crew is insufficiently trained to deal with the thing you're encountering, which you can deal with later. So you can hands-on tools and help and say, guys, let's talk about this later before you leave the scene. Or that's the clearest indication that you're overwhelmed. You have to key the mic, ask for help, and then you can put hands-on tools. If you don't do that, and you see it sometimes on fire scenes, you don't know who the officer is if you don't look at the chevrons on the helmet, because all three seem to be operating as firefighters. And it's just so important, especially in Miami, as we've gone vertical and we've densified, and there's so many more challenges with energy storage and all that. Someone has to be standing back on, it doesn't look like you're right. That smoke condition has just changed. And if you're focused here in the 18 inches in front of your face, you're not looking at the dead load on the roof. You're not seeing the sagging of the soffit boards.
Big picture.
Yeah, and that's a big transition.
It was, I can agree with you. That was my hardest thing to do. I'm 1,000 miles an hour like you. I'm a worker. I'm like, let's go. Let's get it done. Let's treat the patient. Let's put out the fire. Let's do that. As an officer, I had a similar, I was called out. Like, hey, put the saw down.
Yeah.
That's not your job. And I even had guys on the medical, I would put the tablet down, like, let's get to work. And I had one guy, Chin, my man Chin, I remember you, he came up in Jamaican, hey man, we got this.
Yeah.
You the lieutenant now. I'm like, man, it's hard. So for those that are transitioning into an officer leadership position, it is your job to step back.
It might suck. It's the worst moment. The moment you realize
really,
that.
Really, it sucks because you're like, you want to be in the action and you want to cut things. And like you just mentioned, pull hose, jump, and you're like, I didn't sign up for this, bro. Yeah. But at the same time you did, because it was so hard. So hard for me.
I made that, I was able to step back and realize that it's still fun to be the company officer and occasionally the initial incident commander. It was the experience the few times they said, we want you to act for a couple of hours as the battalion chief. Oh. And you arrive. I did it, I think, twice. I arrived first on a house fire. And I realized that all I could do for the duration of this house fire was give directions to other people on all the cool stuff I wanted to do. Yeah. Someone needs to force the door. Someone needs to make entry. Someone needs to do the search. And I'm just telling, I'm assigning my friends to go do the fun stuff I would be doing otherwise. It was probably the most important reason why I never took a battalion chief's test ever.
But you know what? That responsibility is, I don't know how to put this. It's that certain person has to do it, man. And,
yes.
Not just anybody can
and enjoy it,
separate it, and then also achieve it. Yeah. It's very hard. Now, you promoted, you said, to lieutenant and then to captain. You talked to me about the value of leading people who knew you as a firefighter, who played pranks on you. They don't hold back. How did leading those guys make you better?
It's tough because they're honest with you. Like, if you're working with individuals that don't know you, they may just go, oh, this guy's a jerk. I don't like this guy. When you're working with people that you spent years working as a firefighter with, and you're humble enough to accept their critiques and to say, hey, you screwed up, and then debate it and sometimes disagree with them and sometimes go, yeah, but I have to be the officer now. I have to do this. It's a whole different story.
That was also very difficult. It's a difficult task to accomplish. I mean, you guys are in a monster department, so they don't bounce you guys out to another station. That you stayed at the same station, leading your guys when you promoted.
It's not common, but because of my relationships and my reputation, I was on C shift as a firefighter. When I promoted, the A shift lieutenant was going to be moving south anyway. Okay. So he gave up the bid, and when it came available a couple months later, I bid it and got it. Yeah.
Got it.
It's very uncommon. Normally, you don't end up in the same house.
At a small department, they switch of shifts, but at the end of the day, you end up working with the same guys anyways. You have 4 stations, 100 guys compared to 2,000.
Yeah.
Now, you also went back to school during this time. This is, you got your master's in public health from UNC Chapel Hill.
Yes.
All right, studying at the Gilling School of Global Public Health. What made you go back, and what were you looking to understand in those times?
My dad gave me an important piece of advice. He said, Go to school as early as you can, and go to school until you realize you don't need to continue going. And I had done my bachelor's degree, I got my paramedic license, and the next natural step was, because I still had an interest in going to medical school, and
it's lingering in the back of your
it's
head.
still there. So like the degree I actually got was a master's degree. It started out in public health, and I ended up adding another year to it to get a master's degree in healthcare administration. Okay. So it was a fulfillment of what I kind of had decided to do before I ever thought I'd be a firefighter. Let me go figure out the business and the practice of medicine, and I'll get my master's degree in it. Yeah.
Okay. So eventually you ended up in the medical aspect, in that.
Educationally speaking, yeah.
Yeah, where you started at the UF, you finished that goal. Yeah. Now, here's where it gets interesting. 2020 arrives, right? And everything you studied and built was suddenly needed all at once. Like you're saying, those war games you were playing are now going to get put to use. You are elected union president in 2020.
Yes. You
had a whole list of things that you were going to accomplish on your website, right?
Yep.
Still up, guys, by the way. Still, that's your checklist, right?
It's a reminder. I'm probably the only one that visits it.
I checked it out before I came.
And I kind of check in and go, these are the things that I promised I would accomplish and I would work toward. And sometimes I go back and go, I haven't done enough of that. And I'll reprioritize what I'm doing. I go, let me do a little bit more of that subject because I've lost a little bit of momentum. Let's push the ball a little bit farther down the road.
Okay. And then COVID hit. You studied paramedics and pandemics in graduate school.
Yep.
When you saw what was coming with that with that knowledge, what did you know most people around you didn't?
Once it hit the west coast of the United States with a projected 1% mortality rate, and because it was related to coronavirus, because there was the avian and exotic flus and coronaviruses. Those are the ones that keep public health officials up at night. As soon as I saw what was coming across the Pacific and it landed in California, I said, "Oh, we got to get ready. This is not going to be likely contained, and it's going to burn through the country, the world, and we're going to be on the front lines of it." So that was the beginning of the conversation, and once it came to the state of Florida, all the little things started to run out: hand sanitizer, masks,
Crazy
all of those
times.
things. So we actually at one point, I'll see if I can find the picture for you. We started batch mixing hand sanitizer ourselves,
Yeah.
and putting it in 5-gallon jugs and delivering it to stations so that our guys never ran out. So it's one of those things you just keep working. Like there's no hand sanitizer left. Well, we can make it. There's not enough.
That's that outside the box thinking.
Yeah, there's not
this
enough.
This tool doesn't work. Bring in the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now you set up the first drive-through testing for your members. Worked to get PPE when nobody knew where to get it. You coordinated with the state. The goal wasn't to stop COVID.
Yes.
It was to shift the curve, explain what that means operationally for a department that has over 500 people
daily.
Yep. Daily. I mean, just that operation. What was it like?
So we had the benefit of seeing what was starting to happen out west, and it actually got to New York City and started to burn through there pretty aggressively. And this is not uncommon with pandemics, but the peak infection rate, if you don't do things to protect first responders and nurses and doctors, peak infection rate of the community, when the most people are sick and they need help, if you don't do something to protect first responders from getting infected at the same rate as society, the same moment you need the most people, the most first responders, police officers, firefighters, et cetera, are also sick.
Yeah.
So the most need, least number available to respond. So we knew the only thing you could do, you can't prevent it. There's just no way you could prevent something like that. All you could do is try to reduce the spread within first responders such that they got sicker a little bit later than the community at large did. Mm-hmm. So that was what we really tried to do, because in the first few months it was, well, we got these thermometers, and if I aim it at your forehead, it says temperature high. Well, that's not really diagnostic. Mm-hmm. And we're going to send you home because that's the best we can do, but now we're sending a bunch of people home because a thermometer that's not really scientifically calibrated says you had a low-grade fever. So then we were like, okay, these serological tests, first generation, they're not great. Well, it's better than the thermometer. Let's use this new tool. It might be a little bit better, knowing that in 3 months we're going to throw it away and get another one that's more specific. So it was successful. We worked our political connections. We set up drive-through testing where within 4 hours we were testing the whole department a couple of times. We worked with the state to set up the drive-through vaccinations when we got to that point. And we volunteered our retirees that were clamoring for it at the time. Hey, it's voluntary. You're going to be the test run, day 0, before they start tomorrow. We're going to find out where it breaks and let them learn from them showing up.
Okay. COVID were some crazy times,
Wild
to say
times.
the least.
Yeah.
Now, COVID was winding down in Dade County, and the same week Surfside happened. Now, you were there in the early morning hours as a structural collapse technician. What did you see, without getting into too many crazy specifics, looking at that building, that experience?
To be clear, I wasn't on the pile working.
Okay.
I have the certification, and when I arrived there, it was overwhelming, the scale of it, to see it, because we hadn't seen anything like that in the United States since 9/11 and before that, Oklahoma City. And you could just tell that because of the way the collapse had occurred, that it was unlikely that there was going to be anything short of a few miracles that would come out of that. And just to compound it, the first responders to it and the teams that were deployed within hours were operating in their hometown, looking for someone that everyone knew. I mean, the number of text messages I got and I know members of our team got, hey, my friend's brother lives in an apartment, whatever. I mean, it went from being this thing like, you go to Venezuela, massive scale, but not everyone on the team knows someone. A few of the guys were from Venezuela, they had connections back, but everyone no. This was the opposite. And to compound it, having a firefighter from South Florida whose daughter was there, it made it just overwhelming. It was horrible to be there.
Bad time.
Yeah.
Now, something that you mentioned to me on our phone call, a veteran from 9/11 told you, look at these guys' faces, your guys, our responders. You have 18 months. Whatever they don't process now will show up later. What did you do with that?
The morning of that collapse, Ed Kelly from the International called and said, Billy, what do you need? And resources are flowing in, and you could just tell that this was a tragedy on a scale that we don't normally deal with. So I said, I just need somebody that can help me deal with what we're seeing. So he sent Frank Lito and a ton of other guys from September 11th that had mental health training and all those things. And he's the one that said that to me. Billy, you have 18 months. These firefighters that are seeing this now are going to develop problems. In 18 months, they're going to be problem firefighters. Alcoholism, drugs, absenteeism, relationship issues, the worst. You have to prepare for that. And how do we do it? And he's like, you're going to need to have resources available to them today. And we got to work.
And that work means that you built an anonymous mental health program. Now, hundreds of firefighters used it, nearly 1,000 sessions probably. You'll never know exactly how many people it helped, but how do you make peace with that by, accomplishing that?
You have to do something.
Yeah.
And on that morning, the resources that would be available to you later would be to walk into your department and say, I have a problem. The stigma associated with that, letting people know you're struggling with something you saw or something you smelled, or the body that was removed that you saw looks like your aunt. I mean, all of those things, it's unlikely in the fire service we're going to admit it, right? Like, people rely upon us to show up, and we're supposed to be like low-level superheroes. We're not supposed to show it. And option B is you go to the insurance. You have to navigate an unknown. You have to figure out, how do I call a psychologist? How do I talk to a therapist about that? That wasn't going to happen. So we decided there needed to be something we could say, it's not us. We're going to find funding for it. It's anonymous. No one will ever know you called a number, but we've vetted it. We built it. We've ensured that there is a selection process for the person that you'll speak to, to meet a standard that we find acceptable. So we, in a way, we kind of put our stamp of approval on something that others would use that nobody would ever know about.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I thought 5-10 guys would call, get some help, and that would be it. When we saw the numbers of individuals that were calling, like, we got 8 calls last month, we got 12 calls this month. We're authorizing through the foundation the payment for services to unknown individuals but we know that are our members. It was an eye-opening moment. A, thank God they called. B, they were struggling. I have to think that those helped.
You know, part of this show for me, that hits home for the PTSD aspect of it. And if I can utilize this platform to help that one individual, especially a fireman that might be struggling, you know, there's help out there for us. There is. Now, the fire service has lost many people to suicide, too many in the recent years. You and I have lost people that, like you said, Captain Bill Gustin, people that are close to us. Without going into specifics, what do you want firefighters watching this to know about asking for help? And they're there listening to you.
The single most important thing to understand is you're a low-level superhero. It's okay to be injured. It's okay to say that you need help. And it's most important, you should ask for help early. To liken it to a physical injury, it's far easier to ask for help when you have a laceration than gangrene, right?
Yeah.
You need sutures, you get antibiotics, you're back in a game in a few weeks. If you let something fester and really eat away at you and it becomes gangrenous, I mean, you may never recover from it. It's so important. When something's lingering, deal with it. To give you an example of just how personal it can become, one of the ways I've always coped with seeing some of the horrible stuff I've seen is we respond quickly. We get people that are suffering, that are dying, to doctors that have given the opportunity to live. And for me, anytime I felt bad about a call, I'd look and how fast did we move? Did we get, short of angels with wings, could we have done better? And we always tried to figure that out. And then on numerous occasions, if I felt that, I would show it with my crew. Like, hey guys, I want to let you know, from arrival to rider trauma, 14 minutes. Like, that's not
great.
even air rescue. That's arrival, expose, declare, package, and arrive. I mean, great job, guys. Like, to me, that we aren't responsible for the tragedy, but we can move swiftly to try to reverse the worst outcome, right? Mm-hmm. And then I had one of my guys say to me, hey, I'm bothered by this call because we had a horrible accident on I-85 and there was a kid that was maybe 10 years old and he was ashy gray. He was dying right in front of us. And I was bothered by the call. And I looked at the time, and the next shift he comes in, he goes, hey, or 2 shifts later, he goes, really struggling with this. Like, me too, it bothered me. I mean, we were there, they cracked his chest, they're massaging his heart, they worked him for 45 minutes in front of us. So I was hoping to see a miracle so I could feel good about it. And I told him, hey, we did incredible. Like, think through this, it was just 10 minutes here, 2 minutes there. We were there in less than 15 minutes from south of 95th Street on 95. He goes, yeah, but I can't get it out of my head. The kid looks like my nephew. You never know how something's going to affect you because you are a human being and you do know things that will affect you and those that won't, and you can't predict it. So when you run into something that's affecting you, just ask for help. Fix it while it's small and move on.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and through all of it, we're still fighting for the basics, right? So through being in the position that you've accomplished a lot as a union president from 2020 to now. When you took over, the department was 2 contracts behind. You've now negotiated multiple agreements. Let's see, for a firefighter watching this who doesn't fully understand what a contract means to their daily life, can you kind of like break it down what your position as union president, and just briefly, I know it's complex, but
yeah, there's really 2 things that at least we emphasize. One is obviously the financials. For the risks that individuals take when they become firefighters, they should be compensated in a way that, in my opinion, if you're swearing an oath to use your body as a shield for a community and to be willing to sacrifice it to protect the community, you should have the ability to live in it. And that's a constant push-pull, because the cost of everything goes up, which means the pay must also go up. No debate there on our side, at least. The other side that's just as important, though, is the work conditions. The apparatus we ride, the equipment we have, the gear that we wear, we need to make sure that it meets the standards that we know to be the ones that are most likely to protect us, so that we can go home to our family. And if we have the good fortune of retiring, to have a few good years of retirement to enjoy the fruits of your labor of really putting your life on the line shift after shift. So that's really been the two categories we always operate within, is how do we ensure that the compensation is fair and just so that you can live in the community, the types of communities you serve, and how do we protect you so that you aren't endangering yourself unnecessarily. It may cost more money to have 2 sets of bunker gear, but that's an expense that's necessary given everything we know about carcinogens now.
Great thing you bring that up. So 2 sets of gear, right? You push for years. Now, every MDFR firefighter has 2 personally sized issued sets of gear, a decontamination program, and a loaner set. If they use that second set, they can go get a third. What was that fight like? And I know you know, it was tough.
It was a 25-year idea that had never landed. It was always the next thing on the list. We're working on it. Wait, let's go back to the drawing board and start over. And I was insistent upon ensuring that I've already breathed the smoke I've breathed. I've already absorbed the things I'll absorb. I was at the Port of Miami one time where I realized that sometimes you don't even make the decisions to get away from danger. I was cutting, I was on a ladder and I was cutting a lock, and the wind changed. And there was a fire that was here and the smoke was blowing that way. Wind stagnated, nice V pattern. I didn't make the decision to jump off the ladder. I was on the ground and I went around the corner and there was 4 other firefighters I was with. They were also putting on their masks. I mean, the toxins that we expose ourselves to are bad, to the point where on that day I know for sure that my brain said, this is so bad, I'm getting you out of here. So my goal is that the next generation doesn't have that experience. They don't have the concern of exposures they've accrued over the years. And I went back and forth with the previous fire chief. And I remember in contract negotiations, we went back and forth on language that said, you shall never be required to put contaminated gear in your car. To me, that's a very low bar. You go to a structure fire, it's IKEA furniture that's burning. If you have an IKEA warehouse burning, there's hazmat placards everywhere. It's a hazmat incident. Someone's IKEA kitchen's on fire. It's just a dose reduction, but it's still just as toxic. So I looked at my fire chief. I go, hey, I had 2 memories as a kid. My dad would come home from the Northeast when he had a fire. He'd stop at Krispy Kreme. I remember the Krispy Kreme donuts and hugging his leg and smelling smoke. I want the next generation of firefighters to have the first one, the Krispy Kreme donuts. I don't want them to have the second experience. And with that, he actually signed it. And that was the beginning of the conversation of 2 sets of gear. 2 sets of gear, you'll never go back into service until you exchange your gear. This is probably the most controversial thing I'll say in the entire interview, but I was not a proponent primarily of clean cab. Clean cab is not, in my opinion, the end goal or the thing we should be fighting for. Because how did the cabs get dirty?
From that gear.
It's our gear. It's important the cab is clean so that we're in a clean environment. But the only way the cab stays clean is clean firefighters, clean gear. If we keep the firefighter from being, keeping him clean, and we keep the gear from getting back in the truck contaminated, the outcome will be clean cab, because trucks don't get cancer. And I have over 600 members that have been diagnosed with cancer, active, retired. I mean, we are among the populations that most concern doctors around the country. We don't know why. I jokingly say at this point, we're looking to figure out why Houston doesn't have the same incident rate, FDNY doesn't have it. We're trying to, and I jokingly say maybe it's Cuban coffee. It's the thing we haven't figured out yet. What is the anomaly here?
Well, with that said, I mean, what you accomplish is, one, astronomical, because you don't have 100 firemen. You got 2,000 plus.
Yeah.
So, guys, do the math. 2 sets of gear. Go look it up. Like I said. Now, that was great. Now, culture change is the hardest thing to do in this job. Guys who wore dirty gear like a badge.
Yep.
Like a badge of honor, and now you were one of them. How do you how do you come around? How do you change this culture? How do you do that without breaking people in it? How would that?
The most important thing I learned a very long time ago is first figure out philosophically where you stand.
Yeah.
And then work through all the technicalities.
That's to me, that's what.
Yeah.
Just what do firemen don't like? Changing the way things are.
Absolutely.
So getting these guys to, that sooty, looking cool, to all of a sudden, hey, no, we want sparkly, clean gear.
My
Must have
first
been a
helmet I
challenge.
still have, it looks like a charcoal briquette. Like, I never want a future firefighter
No, me either.
to look that way because it's unsafe. It is an unnecessary exposure risk. And if the 25-year-old of me was sitting across from listening to me, I'd be shaking my head, hearing what I'm saying. But knowing what I know and having the background and knowing chemically what happens inside your body, it's cool. I still think that helmet's really cool, but I also know what it represents.
What it comes with.
Yeah, and is that something that you're willing to trade? Not really. And that's where I've told my members, hey, listen, this isn't about being cool. And if you're on a truck and you did the right thing as an officer, but you let the tailboard behind you keep his dirty gear on the truck,
You failed.
You failed, and it may not even be you failed that firefighter that didn't exchange his gear. The driver that never put on bunker gear is now getting a secondary exposure. And if he gets diagnosed with cancer and dies because of that secondary exposure, you share that burden.
Yeah.
As an officer, sometimes you have to go, hey, we used to do that. Like you said before, as a firefighter, the pranks were epic. As an officer, maybe we shouldn't do those things.
I'm a part of the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, which you guys work. I teach the classes, the recruit classes when they invite me to teach them about cancer. And I think that's one of the things in our fire service that has changed drastically over the past few years. And it's due to efforts like your department, and your guys leading the charge. Because when we see Gable's guys, see Miami-Dade, the big leagues doing certain things, we tend to tag along. So I applaud you, and I thank you for everything that you've done.
And one more thing, the culture shift takes time.
100%.
You try to mandate it day one, you're going to lose a lot of guys.
Oh, yeah.
But at this point now, we have our own gear lab, we call it. We have an ISP, which is certification saying we can wash our own gear to the standard. That gear lab is becoming overwhelmed. Since 2020, they built it this big. They've had to expand it twice.
Wow.
And they have to expand it again because the workload that comes in after fires is getting to a point now where I see the culture's embracing the idea that it's probably a good idea to wash the carcinogens off because bunker gear, clean or dirty, is still what a firefighter wears. So.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we're close to the end. You enter the drop next year.
I do.
Wow, time flies, huh? You said you don't know what's next, and you're more at peace with that than you have ever been, right? 20 years ago, what would have changed? What has changed?
I didn't know what drove me, right? Like at the time, I just kept bouncing from the next one challenge to the next. Now I know what sort of satisfies my soul. That I chase a challenge. I look for the next one, and that's the most important thing. And I think that's why I love this job so much, because it is one challenge after another. It's ducks in a drain. It's a person trapped in a car. It's somebody with bad dreams. It's a high-rise fire. Don't get me wrong. I'll miss it. Absolutely going to miss it. In this job now, because I'm not going 90 miles an hour with my hair on fire 14 times a day, I miss it. But I also know that the work I'm doing now is even more consequential than the work I was doing on the streets running calls. So I'm confident whatever I do next, I'll enjoy it. Might be education, it might be something else. Who knows?
Okay. Now, you started at MDC Fire Academy in class 91. If that recruit sitting in that class back then could see where you are now, what do you think he'd say?
He would not believe it. Just wouldn't believe it. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah.
I had an accident in Aruba, and I ended up with 40 stitches in my arm. And I wrapped my arm up, and I put on a compression sleeve, and I put on a long sleeve polo, and I told my crew, I can't even turn my arm over right now to write the report. I'm left-handed, and my arm is out of commission for at least a couple weeks. So please don't make me pop the stitches. I'm going to mentor a guy that's now a captain. And I mean, if you told me that I was going to be doing more of these things, negotiating contracts, getting into the policies and procedures that protects us, I would have said, no way. But the challenge presented itself, and I go, this is the indelible mark I can leave on the fire service and take care of the future generations, far greater than walking across from Station 7 and saying, hey, let me make sure you understand, never give up, and always keep working to solve a problem.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I leave every guest with a similar question. So, Captain McAllister, when the last shift is done and people talk about Billy McAllister, what do you want them to say he stood for?
That I wanted to leave the place better, and I found it. And I've seen it already. I know what's coming. We're here for a period of time. And eventually you become a name or a photo on a wall. I already walked into Station 7. It's a very junior hospital. It's very busy. And I walked in there about 2 years ago, and nobody knew who I was. There's 2,400 guys. They just all didn't happen to know who the union president was. It may have been the beard I had at the time, because it was my rally beard during contract negotiations. But I just sit there and I go, this is what it's like. The seat I sat in, it now has a lieutenant that I don't know. And I'm sharing stories. Hey, do you know where that picture came from? I was the old man for a moment. So I know that when I leave, my aspiration is that I put the place together for the next generation. That's the low bar I hope to have accomplished.
I don't think you need to hope. I think you are definitely accomplishing it. You have drastically increased the quality of life for your firefighters at Miami-Dade, as I have many friends that work for your department. You and your team, of course, not to take credit from any of the massive team that you have built around this local. You've changed it around here. So I applaud you. I applaud all the work you do. I'm here to learn from you also, and those watching hopefully are also taking notes on all the great things that you have brought to this local and to your department. So before we close, I always like to thank Chief Carlos Paul Noel. I'd like to thank Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, Chief Jadala, for allowing us to come in and interview you, and President Vasquez from the North Campus, who allows me to come and meet and talk to great individuals like yourself. So, Billy, what you built isn't just a career. It's infrastructure. I'm sitting in it, right? It's for the firefighter on the truck, for the ones who are struggling, and for the ones who haven't been hired yet. Miami-Dade County's here. You guys are hiring quite a bit more coming up. You didn't plan any of this.
No.
At all, right?
No.
And that's exactly why it worked, I think.
Yeah.
I think so, right?
Chase your passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to everyone watching, the fire service doesn't just need people who can fight fires. It needs people who can solve problems, who can lead with humility, and build things that outlast them. So this is what it looks like. Thanks for tuning in to On the Job, Alumni in Action, Miami-Dade College Fire Academy, and MDFR. Captain William Billy McAllister, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
Yep.
Peace. We're out.